So, welcome today to our Aim High. How does motivation unlock success virtual boardroom that's being facilitated by HR Recruit and Pennywood. My name's Jo Thompson and I'm a consultant for HR Recruit. I'm joined today by Penny, who will introduce herself shortly. Penny will share her strategies to unlock motivation for success. This event has been designed specifically to help you understand how to create a win-win environment for your team, generating positive behaviours which ignite and inspire renewed motivation for successful results. If you've got any burning questions or comments during the session, then please put them into the chat box facility. There's quite a bit of content to go through, so we will cover them at the end. And now I'm going to hand you over to Penny, who will introduce herself and start the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and hello, everybody. I hope you're well today. I wanted to wear pink to kind of bring some energy to the session today because it's been really dire, and I thought, right, I'm going to lighten up the screen today. So I hope you enjoy that. But whether you're a seasoned executive or a new leader, as we move into February after the kind of doldrums of January, you may have noticed motivation levels have started to drop a little bit, or maybe you're experiencing some challenges in motivation in your teams. It could be things like productivity levels are down. Maybe you're noticing that individuals aren't engaged as much with their tasks and productivity starting to decrease a little. Sometimes you're seeing maybe behavior changing with somebody. Maybe they're used to being somebody who's takes the initiative all the time, but recently you've noticed that's lacking a little bit in sometimes the requests and something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Or maybe you see people having difficulty getting started on new tasks, and there's procrastination. There are all sorts of different things linked to that. And how do you create an environment that motivates those around you? And what behaviors do you and your team need to develop for success? Well, today I'm going to give you a deeper understanding of the theory around what drives individual behavior and some of the psychology related to it in terms of how the brain works. And then I want to talk to you about how to create the right environment to generate higher levels of motivation. And a lot of that is down to you as a leader, by the way, the environment you create. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll look at what leadership behaviors maybe you and your team need to develop to drive that positive motivation forward for success. Now, you're all going to be in different situations, whether you're newly formed teams, you've been working together for a while, but whatever it is you're dealing with right now, and whatever reason you showed up today, I'm going to help you understand more about the importance of motivation as a tool for your leadership arsenal. And how you can unlock that success for you and for your teams. Now, I want you to commit to a new mindset for success. Hope you're ready to shake things up a bit. In terms of just some quick housekeeping, this is going to be about 45 minutes, maybe just over. You're going to need a piece of paper and a pen, Word document, whatever you need, find that one. If you're having your lunch, you can have your lunch, that's fine. But what I want you to do is this is your time to develop yourself. Okay, so come into the session, turn your phone over, shut the door, get rid of the dog, do whatever you need to do. Okay, get that second screen shut down. So I know you've got something you're doing there. Get rid of it because this is your time to develop yourself. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, I'm a business leadership success coach, and I'm all about helping business leaders take bold action because that's how it's only when you take bold action that you push things forward and you get that next level success. I've got three strands to my business. You can see there I've got executive coaching. And I deal with leaders at all levels to get clarity and unfold their blind spots, work through different issues, and give them new strategies for success. I deliver leadership development programs. You can see there, I used to, before COVID, travel all over the world, the Philippines, India, all sorts of different places. And I also coach people in public speaking because you'll see at the bottom there, I was a distinguished Toastmaster. Now, that's not someone in a red coat, right? It's what it is, which is what a lot of people think it is. Toastmasters International is a global leadership and public speaking organization. I lived in New York. You can see there I had a great career in the construction industry as a project manager, and I did the $2 billion historic renovation of that complex. It was just an amazing, absolute, career game changer for me. And whilst I was there, I joined Toastmasters and I became president of the ex Twin Towers Club there in New York. And I took it to the highest level of success in terms of the goals, 10 out of 10 for the year. And I had an amazing experience there. And people said to me, you should do this for a living. So it was a big catalyst for change, which is one of the reasons why I'm here today. You'll see an Empowering Girls logo there. I do a lot to give back. And that is a great initiative here in Devon where I'm mentoring year 9 girls. And it's not the high achievers, not the ones that are at the bottom. It's the ones that are in the middle that kind of get lost a bit. And it's really great to help them think about their career future and what they want to do. So I really enjoy doing that. So that's a little bit about myself. And, I think for me, I'm totally committed to leadership and development and your success. And I want to develop leaders like you. You're already leading powerful teams, many of you. So I want you to get that development. Now, I'm assuming you're here because you want to, want highly motivated individuals and teams, but maybe you've noticed that there are some issues around motivation that you want to tackle. Maybe you don't have the right balance in terms of the environment. I think it's really important to know where you and your team are at any given point. Now, what do I mean by that? Now you need to keep on evaluating what's going on in your professional life, in their professional lives, with what's going on with people. Do a temperature check. If you're a team leader, are you close to what's happening inside your team? And it's really interesting when I start coaching individuals and I ask them that question. Actually, a lot of when some of the problems unravel, a lot of it is around the fact that they're actually not close to their team, because we all have so many priorities pulling us different directions, right? So my goal is to show you the science around what drives people to be motivated. Some of it you will know, but I want to talk to you about for you a different element around that. Then we're going to look at the environment you're creating, and then we're going to look at some of the leadership behaviors. Now, if you've been struggling to keep motivated, keep motivation levels high, this is probably why. There are a lot of external factors affecting people right now. Money, people are having to have very honest conversations about money and finances at home. Redundancies, thousands of people in organizations have been made redundant over the past year. It's happening again. I saw Homebase, I think it was, and maybe Asda, they were making people redundant. And for those left behind, there can be a lot of pressure. Survivor's guilt is something that I've been talking about to some of my clients privately. It's affecting a lot of people, and people are putting a brave face on it, and it's all added pressure. It's a highly volatile world right now, and people are worried about what's happening in the future. Don't underestimate that. We all come to work with our professional face, but behind it, and this is what I mean when I'm saying, are you connected to people about where they are? There can be all sorts of different issues going on, because all these things can make it harder for people to keep focused, depending on what's going on with them. And people are good at masking their worries at work. It's only natural that then they might get distracted. Okay. And it's noticing that difference in behavior. It's really important for you to understand your people, understand what's going on with them, and what's linked to that dip in motivation. Because then once you understand that, then you can start to put strategies in place and those bold actions can happen. Those light bulb moments, that's what, what I mean, what I'm hearing is that people don't have those light bulb moments at the moment because of the situation they're in. Now, there's a lot of things I see leaders do when it comes to managing motivation levels, but they don't really work. So sometimes someone in the team, when I speak to individuals, they don't really have clear goals. They're unsure about what they're moving towards or what their team's moving towards and how their efforts contribute to the big overarching goal that everyone's trying to achieve. Have you ever thought about that? Are your teams really connected? Do you know? Have you had those conversations? There's that awful thing at the end of the year, right? Let's set goals for 2025, right? And lots of people do that tick box exercise. But are you connected to their motivation? There's a lack of opportunity for growth and development. Maybe, for example, somebody might be trying to get a qualification approved. I hear this a lot, and it's like, oh, my manager said next year, next year, next year. Next year never comes. And it can be really demotivating for an individual. And that over time, they start to lose trust and their motivation starts to drop. Um, Maybe there's something around micromanaging, that lack of autonomy. Sometimes that can be really suffocating and it can impact on the trust that you've got with that individual. And sometimes it can be really demotivating if somebody feels like they're kind of trapped. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't have to be like that. And I want to help you understand what motivates people and let's look at that environment. Now, in terms of today, first of all, I want to look at the theory of motivation because once you understand that, you'll understand where people are coming from at any point in time and why they behave the way they do. Now, for you guys, sometimes I do this with organizations that have never seen this. You guys will have seen some of what I'm talking about, but I'm going to look at it in a different way for you guys. Then I want to look at number two will be about creating an environment for people to thrive, achieve, and excel. And how do you do that? And then lastly, I want you to look at some behaviors for you and your team. And we'll talk about some things that may need to change or shift to get those higher levels of motivation back. And lastly, before we go, I want you to get that piece of paper and make notes as we go through because there'll be things that come up for you. Okay. So I hope you're ready to get going and let's get into my first strategy. Now, this is all about what drives an individual's behavior at work. Now, I'm going to share a story with you. I was working in a large organization and they had a major IT upgrade doing, and it was migrating an IT system for 1,500 staff. And it was going to be rolled out sequentially, team by team. And as part of that IT support, my role was to find a training provider that could work with us to create a bespoke training program for those staff. But they had to learn how to use this new system. It was brand new. So if they didn't know how to use it, they would come in on their day one when the rollover had happened and they wouldn't know what to do. So how was I going to motivate them to want to do the training? Because let's face it, who wants to do IT training? It's pretty dull, right? I had to motivate them to attend. And I also needed them to get the knowledge that they needed so that when they got back to the office, they knew how to use this new system. And I wanted to have it a bit of fun doing it as well, right? Because it's that kind of training where, oh, I'm on holiday. I won't be there kind of thing. It's that kind of training, right? So I tapped into the internal motivators that people have. And on a basic level, they just wanted to do their job, right? Without all the disruption of a new system. So I was looking at what are the real basics of what they need to achieve and why is it impacting them. Now, I knew that 100%, not all 100% people would be interested in the training, but I had to get them to those sessions because, I wanted to make sure that when they came back, they were going to be able to do it. And I knew that they would be annoyed with me because I was the face of that project and it would be all my fault. And I was like, I don't want all of that coming my way, right? So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. Now, I know that some of you will know about Maslow. He's a popular American psychologist. But what I want to talk to you about is I'm going to ask you some coaching questions through this because as HR professionals, a lot of you will know about this. I mean, so in terms of the diagram, the basic needs are the psychological needs: food, water, shelter. These days it's Wi-Fi and 4 or 5G, maybe 6G right now, whatever it is. And right now with all the things that are going on in the world, people, especially with redundancies, people are going to be right down there at the bottom, right? They're going to be thinking, I just need to keep my job. I need to keep my head down, keep my job. Um, Now, and in terms of my story, those 1,500 people, they just needed the technology, right? Um, the psychological social needs, this is about being part of something. They want to belong to a team or a business organization, and they kind of crave that. People want that sense of belonging, that sense of connection. They want to enjoy their time working together, and they want to be appropriately trained or mentored. Now, obviously, in my story, once everyone was trained up, they could use the new technology. They felt that they were on the same journey together. Everyone was learning together, helping each other. And in terms of moving up in the to the self-esteem needs, that's all about respect. Are our skills, knowledge, experience, and abilities being recognized? I've been around, I'm moving it, my motivation is moving up, but am I being recognized? Am I trusted by the organization? Am I being recognized? Are we're delivering a service together and it matters? My In terms of my story, this my self-esteem needs, they were met because we in terms of those individuals, we recognized that they were taking on the new changes to the system. We acknowledged their efforts to learn. We made them feel good about the fact that they moved on with us as a group together, because once you get that sorted, you move up to the self-actualization, which is, and I've worked at this level a lot in the past, and it doesn't take very much to be right at the top and suddenly you're right down at the bottom. Okay, because at the top here, you're fulfilling your real true potential, you're being stretched, challenged, taking on new responsibilities. It's a great place to be. And if you've experienced it, it's great. I want you to think about people who may never have experienced being in that pink zone. It's and not people don't really think about this enough. And the benefits of reflecting on this is you get real clarity of thought around what's going on with your team and in relating to their levels of motivation. And you can start to understand some of the issues some of the challenges you face, and some of the impacts. Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions now, and I just want you to write down your thoughts. Now, where do you think you are on that pyramid right now? Where do you think you are, and why are you there? Whether that's good or bad. This is especially good if you're kind of thinking about leaving or you've had enough, right? It can help you kind of get some clarity around that. So, where are you on that pyramid? Now, if you're thinking about your team, where's your team on that pyramid? And it's interesting when I coach people through this, they're like, oh, actually, I've never really thought about that. And that will start to bring out some thoughts about what's happening. Now, what behaviors are you noticing that indicate that somebody might not be in the hierarchical level that you think they should be at, that their level of motivation isn't where it should be? What is it about that person? How's their behavior changed? Is there something happening for them? What's driving those behaviors? And if you don't know, how are you going to find out? If you know, what can you do to mitigate any kind of negative behavior? What needs to happen to move that person onto the next level? Now, as a result of reviewing this today, I wonder if there's someone that comes to mind that you may think, oh, actually, maybe I need to have a conversation with them. What's that conversation about? Just think about that because I'm getting you to kind of ruminate and think about things, right? And I'm hoping that you've got some things that you've written down. And as a result of reviewing that today, if there's someone that's come to mind that you think you might need to have that conversation with, and you've worked out what it's about, when are you going to have it? Now that one can be a bit of a trigger because it's like, oh, she's made me realize what it is. Now I've got to go do something about it, right? So I want you to think about that. Now, I was using this slide recently with a client when talking through the impact of word getting around in their organization that redundancies were going to happen in the coming weeks. And this person was leading that team. It was a big team, and the rumors were there. It was out in the press, and they had an awful lot of trouble. But they're working out what to do. But this particular exercise really helped them to reflect and think about each person in their team and where they were in that pyramid. And once they'd reflected on it, they had some, surprising things come up to them. Because remember, people will be in every different zone. Okay, you're not all going to be in the same zone. You're going to have, and for different reasons, whether it's where they are in their career, all sorts of different things. But I just want you to remember that where people are related to their levels of motivation, it's important that they fulfill their role and success. What's success like for them? You've got to be clear about that. Take some time to reflect on it. And if you ignore them at your peril, because if things aren't great now, it's only going to get worse. Okay, so I want you to, it's time to kind of pick it up because once you get that level of clarity and focus, you'll be able to take that bold action. And those of you who know me, I'm always going on about you take that bold action and then you get the shift. You'll understand where people are, what they're dealing with, what's bothering with them. You'll get that pivotal moment of shift because you can't go back now, right? Oh, I now know where we are. We've got to move forward. And then you'll be able to drive that motivation forward with different strategies. I really like this as a reflective exercise because it kind of brings it to life. When I was working with this individual, they said to me, wow, this has really helped me to, I'm looking at each individual and I've got a real idea of what's going on. Now, I wanted to share an example of how this kind of work works in practice. Now, I was supporting somebody who was leading a huge office move in a city where a buyout was happening, right? Two completely different companies had been merged together and they had completely different cultures. One was suited and booted, very corporate. One was t-shirts and shorts, very different. And the challenge for this particular leader was around how are they going to lead this huge change? How are we going to, first of all, motivate everyone to buy into the move, the merger, and then the mood of the new organization, which would have a very different identity and culture. There was a lot of anxiety about the two different cultures merging, moving from a cube office space to an open plan. And the office was going to grow from 100 to 500. So when I was speaking to this person, I was like, you need to think about the impact of that, where people have been working with 100 people, which is quite a small group, to 500 plus. You're going to have offices massive. One of the floors was 300, 300 plus full. and it was a very different area in terms of what the people were used to. And then through the coaching process, um, when we looked at this and the motivation behind all the different teams, some people managed the pace of change successfully. They were ready for it. They wanted to move to this brand new trendy office. Some people found the pace of change a little bit more challenging. They just weren't ready for it. They weren't ready to accept the cultural changes, the physical location. You got to remember, people's commute had changed. If you were living south of the city and the office was north, your commute now is almost doubled. How is that going to impact you, your family life, your work-life balance? There was an awful lot around it. And I think, as leaders, sometimes we're focused on, right, we've got to do this, it's happening, but we forget about the impact with individuals. And eventually, after months of consultation, um, the person was being able to kind of coach people, show them everything, discuss the new layouts, discuss their concerns, and then the motivation levels finally started to increase. So, and when they got to that new office, the pain of it wasn't as bad as it could have been because they managed it as they went along. So when what I was talking about earlier is, are you really connected to what's going on with individuals? This is a really good example of that. Um, so number two is around the environment. This is about, let me take a quick sip for a second. This is around how you create the right environment to motivate people so they thrive, because you are responsible for that. And the context, in the context of this session, is the environment that you're creating allowing people to thrive and achieve? Just think about that for a minute. Are you setting up an environment where people feel like they work in a space that's emotionally safe? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, where they can demonstrate how they feel at any one time, whether that's good or bad. Okay. Because people aren't robots, and as leaders and managers, you've got to be able to understand their personal journey. What excites them? What are they passionate about? What do they want to achieve while they're working, at this organization? If they're not happy, what's that all about? What's triggering that? Are you allowing them to express all of that? And if not, you better start understanding them more. Get underneath all of that if you're going to motivate individuals to be successful. Do they get that sense that they are achieving something, that they're part of a wider contribution to the world? Or are they just task based? A lot of people are just task based. But you want to get them to see how what they do in the context of what it delivers. So, for example, I was talking to a young architectural student. She's going into a big practice. You will all know it, very famous practice. And she's just doing a particular task. She's got to do it 100 times over for months and months and months at a time. And I was talking to her about this, and I said to her, how connected are you to this amazing building that you're going to be creating? And she hadn't really kind of thought about it. She was too busy just connecting the dots, in the task. So it's understand getting people connected to the end result of it. Let me go back to that IT project I was telling you about, um, related to creating the right environment. So I had 1,500 people. They had to take this new platform on. Now, the training provider was just outside the city. And I thought, and when I went there, their food was phenomenal, right? So I was thinking to myself, oh my God, how am I going to get people to, first of all, drive out there? And how am I going to even get them to bother to do the training? So I took a real different approach to this. And people were like, we don't know if it's going to work, but we're going with you. I realized, so I decided to get a bus. I secured a bus for 6 months, a little mini bus that would turn up at 8:30 every day outside the office, and it would literally take people to the training place, right? So instead of them thinking, oh, I can't get there, or how am I gonna, I did it for them. Now, of course, not everybody took up that option, but it was there for the people who wanted. I was there with my clipboard every day at 8:15 for 6 months. Yes, hello, Penny. Yes, you're there, getting them on their way. So that was the first thing. I got rid of the getting there problem. Whilst they were there, the training was absolutely exceptional. But this was another interesting thing. I made sure their food was amazing. And you know why? Because this was a whole day out. So it was a big, it was a long time out of the office. And I wanted to get people talking about something. And guess what they talked about? They didn't talk about the training. They talked about the food they got at lunch. They said, you better go to that training because you get a great lunch, right? Now, how weird is that when you think about that to motivate people, right? And interestingly, the result, by the way, at the end of that program, 1,500 people, I had 98% attendance go to that program. Now, the training provider company could not believe it. They had never seen that before. In that kind of rollout training, they said, oh, we get about 40% if we're lucky. They couldn't believe it. They offered me a job actually because they were like, I don't know how you've done this, but we want you working for us because that's what we're looking for. But can you see how I tapped into the environment? And it's about putting all those different pieces of the jigsaw today, whatever situation you're dealing with. The most important thing you've got to think about is it's a multifaceted approach, right? So you've got to reconnect with individuals. You may have realized today that you need to reconnect with a certain individual. You've got to encourage that open communication so people feel comfortable about sharing their ideas, their concerns, so that they can give feedback and then you can start moving forward. You have to lead that conversation. Okay, so and you've got to, there's ways to go about it, but you've got to lead it. What about their goals? Are they really clear that they've got meaningful goals, not just something, tick box thing? Do they light up when they speak about their goals, or they go, "Oh, well, actually, yeah, I've got to do that," and they've got this low tone, low energy. If they're not like lit up with their goals, well, there's something for you to look at, right? Maybe you've got to realign them. Um, in terms of that objective, do they realize how their goal contributes to the overall goal of the team and the organization? I was really connected to my goal of getting that training done because everybody went and did the training. They were there, they got engaged, they did the knowledge. That migration was so successful. It was a hard going 6 month period of managing it, but it's that connecting to what they're doing. Okay, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about autonomy and empowerment. Give them a sense of control over their work, allowing them to make decisions and have input in the process. Um, Maybe provide opportunities for training, skills updates, workshops, educational opportunities to allow them to develop their skills and their professional growth. Get them cross collaborating across functional teams. Create that positive environment. There's one story I just want to tell you quickly about somebody I was working with in the Far East, and she came to me and she said, Penny, she said, I've got somebody working with me and they're just not really connected to what we're doing, but they're really enthusiastic, but I don't know how to deal with, their situation in terms of what they're delivering for the team. And we looked at it in more detail and we broke it down. And I said, look, that person, because of, my training and that person, they're missing the social element. This is what they've said. So what I got that manager to do is to get that person involved in arranging a team day event. And can you imagine? They lit up. Suddenly it was a goal they were connected to. They loved it. It was going to help their development. And what that leader got out of that individual was the motivation for something that wasn't connected to what they were doing, but it benefited the team, it benefited the organization. Their motivation levels rose. So, but it was quite a curveball thing for that leader to do. So I want you to think about how you're creating those environments and opportunities and flexibility as well. The last thing I think I want you to think about is lead by example. You're the ones creating this environment. If people are miserable around you, what are you doing as part of that to make it work for people? What behaviors are you demonstrating? And you may be going through something really difficult at the moment. Like I'm just, I can't, right? But what I say to you is, I get that, right? We all have stuff that we have to deal with, but in those moments when you're visible, you've got to step it up. You've got to find somehow to get it out of yourself, right? Because they're looking to you for that inspiration. All right. Um, so I want you to think, what's the biggest gear change you've got to implement for motivation success this year? Are you ready to get into bold action and create that really amazing environment, that emotionally safe environment for your team? I hope this has got you thinking about some different things to consider, different things that you need to create and implement to reignite that motivation in your team for success for 2024. What showed up for you? Is it around getting a deeper understanding of what motivates people and then thinking about those around you and having that light bulb moment? Oh, actually, I think I need to go and have a conversation with Penny. Yeah, I've put that on the back burner. Yeah, I need to get back into that. Has it got you thinking about different strategies you could implement and what might boost the motivation of everyone around you? Has it raised more questions? I'd like you to put in the chat. Um, can you put, if it's raised more questions, can you put questions? If it's giving you clarity, can you put clarity? So it's either questions or clarity. Put in the chat there just so I can see where everybody is, because it's always interesting. Clarity. Nice. Good. That's great. Great. Nice. Thank you for that. It's good to see that, I'm hoping that clarity. I think this is so important. It's something I've always done. Yeah. Yeah. Take it to the next level. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that. Yeah. Questions. Good, Rebecca. I like that. Good. It's at least it's making you ask questions. Good. Who's that? Another question, Sally. Yeah, good. Thank you very much. And oh, That's really helpful. It's really interesting to see where people are at. So for my final strategy, this is all about understanding about the behaviors linked to motivation. Why does some people try to reach their targets and pursue excellence, right? While other people just want to show up at work and count the hours, right? Well, it's quite a complex question to unpack, and there's lots of reasons why for that. And one thing I want you to think about is that it's important to remember that people who appear to be highly motivated, they may feel a lack of motivation in certain circumstances or stages in their lives. And as leaders, you've got to be able to tap into your level of emotional intelligence, such as empathy, and take a moment to reflect on what's happening with individuals in your team before you go in and trying to fix it, right? It's not about fixing it, it's about that development. Now, I was working with a client and they noticed that one of their team had started to change their behavior in recent weeks and they seemed a bit down. They didn't have any energy and they kind of lacked motivation. They weren't contributing to team meetings, their collaboration, they were very quiet. They became quite withdrawn and it wasn't like them at all. They usually come in really bouncy, bring people, in the office, they bring people homemade treats. They were great energy to have in the team. So we worked through some different strategies and approaches together with this person. And then they went back into the workplace and tried them out. And one day, that person who was down came into the office around 40 minutes late. And this had been going on for a couple of weeks, and people around them had started to notice, managers, and, so this person realized they had to do something about it. Now, what unfolded was something that manager could never have foreseen, right? And for confidentiality purposes, I can't share that with you. But it was something pretty big. And they asked that person to just, when that person turned up late that particular day, they asked them just to go for a walk around the block to get some air. And at one point, they sat down on a bench, and that person broke down and started to tell them a very personal family problem, which had impacted their life and had impacted their recent routine to get to work. And going back to, the Maslow diagram again, that person had gone from being right at the top. They were kind of at the self-esteem. They were there, right, at towards the top of the pyramid, to all of a sudden going right back down to the bottom of it. And because of this external event, right, that they had no control of. And so I think it's really important for you to be thinking about that when you see these changes in behavior. There's usually something behind it. There's usually something around it. People don't change for not not real reasons. So I just wanted you to think about that. And in terms of behavior, once that manager had understood what was happening, they both worked out a plan about how to get things back on track. And they agreed that that person would come in late for a certain period of time, but they would make up the time. And they agreed that this would happen for a month. This was shared with the team that this individual was going to be allowed this, so people could see that things were being done. And then, because this is the amazing thing that happened, because that person had actually been heard and properly dealt with, they actually exceeded the expectations of the manager, and they sorted that problem out within 2 weeks, and they were back to normal. Now, I think that's a really poignant example around, why people change their behavior and how their lack of motivation impacts their performance levels and the reasons behind it. Think about that for the moment. Because lack of motivation can be often related to an unmet need. And I wonder if you've considered that before. Um, how do you know? How do you identify that lack of motivation? Now, you want to be, in terms of looking at behaviors, I talked about it a little bit earlier. Has their energy levels changed? Their enthusiasm changed? Maybe they're becoming a bit disinterested in their team's goals, a project or a task. Maybe they're starting to talk negatively about something, or they've got doubts about what you want to implement. Maybe they're getting overwhelmed much faster than you're used to them. Maybe you can throw 4 or 5 things at them at once, and all of a sudden you can only throw one thing at them. Maybe, are they being challenged enough? Now that's related to that unmet need. It's not because there's something wrong. Maybe they're just not getting enough of what they want. They want more. Have you considered that? Because the impact can lead to kind of boredom sometimes. People may be stuck in a routine. They've got no sense of purpose. They haven't got that drive to pursue their aspirations. And then that's when their performance starts to decline and they start to kind of spread that negative energy. Have you ever noticed those people? They turn up, these days we're all on Teams meetings, right? And they turn up and they're kind of, and they're like, yeah, 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 I'm all right. Yeah, all good, all good. That kind of, you notice those behaviors, right? But it doesn't have to be like that. How do you drive behavior to create higher levels of motivation for success? So, psychologists have divided motivation into two types. There's intrinsic motivation, where your behavior is driven by internal factors. You do something because you find it fun, interesting, and meaningful, right? So, intrinsic, when you look at your team members, find out what they like about their job, what they do, how are they interested in it? Because they're more likely to achieve their goal if they're invested in it. Okay, so look at those intrinsic motivation factors. Then look at the extrinsic motivation factors, because your behavior is driven by external factors. So now this is, you do something because you're getting paid and there's a reward, or because your boss tells you to do X, or because you're expecting positive feedback from others, right? Maybe it's compliments, maybe it's praise. Even though we think that extrinsic motivators like cold hard cash are strong motivators, most research shows that that isn't the case. So people are motivated by their intrinsic motivation, and they're more likely to stick to their long-term goals because of that. So it may be, it may be about money, may not be, but you need to work out what are the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation factors for that individual. How can you improve your own and your team's motivation? Well, people are motivated. We've seen that they're motivated by basic needs that drive their behavior. Maybe it's about giving them more autonomy. They want freedom to make their own decisions, work out what suits them and work out whether that works for the team. Maybe it's about competence. Maybe they got some skills they need to develop, and they want to work on themselves. Maybe it's about connection. That example earlier of that person who really wanted to feel needed. They wanted to feel part of the team, that they belonged. Um, and at a one-to-one level, I want you to really think about how you can support them when you notice that motivation is starting to drop and go downhill. Talk to them. Start setting maybe smaller, more achievable goals. Provide constructive feedback. Provide opportunities for development, whether that's skills or something else. Make them feel valued. Often people don't need that pay rise to be motivated. They just need to be valued and respected and kind of acknowledged that they're doing something well. How many times do people work like mad and no one really says thank you? And those kind of blanket team thank yous, they're okay. The hoorah, hoorah team meetings. But a lot of people that I've spoken to, they go away from those feeling utterly just nothing because it's not personal to them. So, and on an individual basis, for you, are you finding meaning in your work? Are they finding meaning in their work? Create that environment in the moment. Think about that individual that took that person out for a walk when they came in late and they were a bit flustered. Okay, let's remove them from the environment because everyone's looking, it's pretty tense. Oh, she's late again, whatever. And just create that, change that environment in the moment, and turn to others for inspiration to get that sense of perspective. If you can't put, the nub of it, you can't quite get to it. Maybe somebody else can help you by looking at it differently. Um, you above all, I want you to remember you need to understand your people, what's important to them, what motivates them, how do they want to succeed, because their success is your success, right? A lot of um a lot of leaders that I come across, it's all about them, but they forget that if it wasn't for everybody else that's with them, they wouldn't be successful. Okay, so remember that you want everyone to succeed. You need to think about how you're going to create that environment where people are going to thrive and succeed, not just survive. Okay, if you're noticing that kind of survival thing, there's something you need to do. Now, you can't do everything. We know organizations try all sorts of initiatives, and sometimes it's just not going to work, right? We understand that. But if you've got somebody who's constantly bringing that negative energy, that's the person you want to go for first, okay? To get that negativity away, you've got to get it away. Um, because once you understand what needs to change, you'll see it's possible to create a win-win environment where everyone's motivated to succeed. But it takes some work, right? This is not going to happen overnight. This is not right. We're going to leave here today, Penny. Everything's going to be perfect tomorrow. Nah, that ain't happening. We're talking months here. You got to think about, I've said to quite a few leaders that I'm coaching at the moment, what are you thinking about the 1st of April? No, like, what do you mean the 1st of April? Well, you realize, well, it'll probably happen at the end of April, but it's implemented. In the UK, people are going to see less in their salaries, in their pay packet when they go home because of these hikes in taxes that we've got. Are you ready for that? Because that may push some people over the edge. Are you thinking about that? What are you doing to prepare about it? And they're like, wow, I hadn't really thought about that, because they're, again, in the trenches, delivery, 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 right? But there are lots of indications that you see that are going to come along. So how are you going to create that environment where they're going to succeed? And how are you going to be more aware of behavior? Because I want you to create that win-win-win environment. And I've been there myself. I've worked in several places where it's been a fantastic place to work, and I've been in places where it's been awful. And people vote with their feet. That's another thing you got to remember, and how expensive it is. You guys all know how expensive it is to recruit. You can stop that happening if you get to grips with motivation. So you've got the opportunity right now to aim high and become committed to unlocking motivation for success for everyone around you, including yourself. You've got to be prepared to put the work in, really understand your people, create that environment where everyone's going to feel motivated and excel. And do you understand what you need to do to get there? Will you be that contribution to those around you so they can thrive and succeed so that everybody wins? It's quite hard, isn't it, when you think about it? It's because this is tapping into all that kind of grey stuff that nobody talks about. You won't find this on a policy document, right? It won't be 6.4.5. Here's the motivation formula, right? It's not there. So I hope you're prepared to put that action, that bold action into practice. And I just want to share with you, this is a client I've worked with, who to tackle motivation, an issue in her team before she came to me. She had a team member who'd only been there 6 months, but she noticed that her motivation levels had started to decline. She wasn't delivering things on time, things were missing, there were errors. And she didn't really seem connected to the organization. She hadn't kind of bonded and settled in. And this lady knew that she had to do something about it, some bold action. So she came to me for coaching. And through that process, we discussed all the things that I was talking about today. She was able to tap into understanding the intrinsic motivators for that individual. And there was a specific reason, which obviously I can't share with you today. But by being clear on what motivated that person, she created a bespoke strategy with specific interventions, specifically related to that individual. And then over the next 2 months, she monitored the situation with her regular catch-ups, and she noticed things started to change. That person had started to become more connected to their work. They had that renewed sense of purpose, and she identified that in their conversations. And because they had more autonomy over what they were doing, they took more responsibility for the outcome. And I think that was probably where some of the problems lie. That person wasn't quite sure about boundaries. And then the quality of her work started to improve. And I asked her what she got out of coaching with me, and she said, um, it was being able to work through a whole plethora of issues. She was able to get real clarity of thought on focusing on a new approach because she tried so many things and she just didn't know, what to do. But these interventions helped her. Then that helped her become more confident to be able to tackle the situation. So instead of letting things fester, right, and getting worse, she was able to tackle it head on and be confident that the interventions that she was using were going to work. And that by working together and discussing those and working them out, that really helped her. And she got the outcome she wanted, a newly motivated staff member who became a really valued person in the team, a big contribution. And she retained a staff member, right? There's always the danger of that, right? It's a win-win for everybody because we all know how much it costs if someone does leave. So, I'd say what I'd say to you is ignore this at your peril, right? If you put your head in the sand if you want, but it's going to come right back at you and it's going to keep coming back at you. So I really want you to think about that today. Now you've got an opportunity, just like that leader I was talking about, all the people I've talked about today, um, to deal with motivation, and all the issues that may arise. Maybe it's not now, maybe it's going to happen in the future. So this is giving you some things to think about that. Don't wait until things get difficult. You've got to take that bold action as soon as you see that motivation starting to slip. Okay. And whatever you need to do, I want you to really believe that you can aim high and be that successful leader that I know is inside you, because when it comes out, it's amazing. And I see it all day with the transformation through my coaching, which is amazing. I hope you've identified some quick wins for yourself today, whether that's something around the 5 levels of motivation, or you've thought about something around the environment that needs to change, or maybe you've identified some positive behaviors, or like I said earlier, oh, I need to go have that conversation with that individual. Um, Now, in terms of me, if you'd like to have a conversation about anything I've talked about today, or even if your team or organization could do with some additional support, or if you'd like to discuss your own leadership challenges and goals, well, we can have a conversation, and on that call, I can give you 2 things that will help you achieve your goal. I'll help you discover a barrier that's stopping you from moving forward, and I'll help you work out one major bold action that you need to take to get that success you really want. And then we can see whether we can work together and help you to achieve the success that you really deserve. Take out your phone, use your camera app. This is a quick response code. If you point your camera at the code, what it does, it goes straight to my calendar, and then you can find a time that works for you. Okay, I'm here to help you, to coach you through all of that. If you've got problems with your team, well, let's have a conversation about that, how I can help you. If you want to stay in touch with me, I hope you've enjoyed today's session. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can use that QR code to connect with me. Please, you can email me, phone me. My website is there. If you like, I do a lot of things in my social media. So if you want to stay connected to everything, all things Aim High, please subscribe to my mailing list and you'll be in touch with me. And I'm happy for anyone who wants to stay on the end if they want to ask me some questions now. But otherwise, I'm going to say enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you very much. And I will hand back to Joe.
Thanks, Penny, and thanks very much to everyone that's attended. Wow, there was loads in that, Penny, and some really good comments there. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll send out some correspondence to everyone that signed up for the event, and I'll put a post on LinkedIn. So if you would like a copy of the follow-up information or the recording, then please put a comment against the LinkedIn post. Our next event is next Tuesday, the 11th of February, and is titled Managing Grievances for Effective Outcomes. A link to sign up for this will be included in the email. If anyone is recruiting, we have accountancy recruit, FD recruit, and exec recruit in the group. Otherwise, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Penny for your time and effort in putting the event together, and to everyone for signing up. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.